You've got your foundation pieces done. Now it's time to work on the pattern pieces. If you want to find out how to draft and cut the pattern pieces for this fabulous 1940s coat, keep watching. Hello and welcome to Killer Kitsch Lizzie, my weird little world where I like to knit and sew and do other crafty things. And I'll pop a picture up of this, but this is the coat that I am going to be making in this video. Well, the pattern pieces. It's from book 20 and it's figure 34 if you would like to follow along. I unfortunately do not own this booklet. I will link to several sellers over on Etsy that have this pattern. I'm going to probably put a star beside one of them, and that means that pattern is the least expensive of all of the sellers, and that's the one I have. So, and it's actually very good quality. The images are sharp. You can read all the numbers, because sometimes it is hard to read the numbers on the scans. So they've done a really good job. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to do the front pattern piece. Oh, sorry. Oh, as it falls on the floor. The back pattern piece. The collar piece. The back collar, actually, because the front collar is actually cut on, as you'll see in the when I show it to you, and how to draft the sleeve. So at the end of this, you'll have 4 pattern pieces. So without further ado, let's get on to that tutorial. So onto the pattern pieces. As with the front and back coat or dress foundations, I am going to have to work sideways, and I will be moving the paper as I do. And I will, after I've drawn the pencil line, I will go back over it with the marker just so you can see it. So the things you're going to need to create these pattern pieces is you are going to need, you know, paper, scissors, pencil, Sharpies if you're using them, eraser, tape if you have to tape a few pieces of paper together because these are long pieces. And then, you know, the scissors for afterwards so you can cut your pattern pieces out. I also like to have something like a T-square handy. Now, sometimes, and you're going to find that when you're doing the, I think it was the sleeve, or it might have been the collar piece, you'll find that you need the extra little bit because this isn't quite long enough. So I'm just going to move a few things out of the way except for what I need for right now. And then the other things you're going to need is you are going to need your measurements again, because you're going to need them for the collar and the sleeve. If you're doing the same pattern as me, you will need the pattern outline instructions. Now, I don't own this pattern, as I would have mentioned in the opening, but as I've also mentioned, I will make sure there's links to sellers. There are a few sellers that are actually reasonably priced. I think I paid $9 or $10 Canadian for this. Some other sellers are selling the exact same book for $20 or $30, but the quality is not any different. So I will link a few different options. Every country, the price is going to be different, but in Canadian, it was around $9 or $10. US, it'll be less. The UK, I'm not sure, less than pounds. Like our dollar is horrible right now. So, and then in the same book, you are going to need, I think this was at the back. Yeah, this was the back of the book. You're going to need the book of draftings information, because it's going to explain to you things about how, like, you're going to see terms on these pattern pieces, and you know, fixing sleeves is one of them. It shows up on the it shows up on the sleeve piece where it says fix seam to seam, so it explains here what it is. Coat sleeves, it gives you information that's very important, and then it also tells you information about the collar and rever facings. So this is a rever collar, so you are going to need those, and you're definitely going to need your templates. Now what I did for all of the pieces is I went ahead and drew around my foundation that I made, and I marked on here all the dots, dot 3, dot 2, dot A. I've marked all of those. I put my waistline, I put my hip line, and I put my darts. And I already calculated my length, so I, you know, it was the same as the length of the coat pieces is going to be exactly the same as my foundation. And you're also going to want to note on every one of your pattern pieces that this is a coat front, what book you're using if you're not using this book, what figure it was in that book. And then you're also going to want to note how many of each pattern piece you're going to be cutting out, which I've not done yet because I just wanted to remind myself to tell you. So I'm just going to run through this. This will also be written in the Patreon post. So don't worry if you don't remember this, it will be on the Patreon post. So the front piece is going to need, you're going to need to cut 2 front pieces, 2 back pieces, 2 pocket pieces, 2 back collar pieces, 2 sleeves, for 2 front, well, it's 4 sleeve pieces altogether, so 2 front, 2 back. And then you're also going to need to cut a collar and a front coat facing and a back coat facing. Now, when it comes to facings, I do not cut those right away, or I don't even draft out those pattern pieces right away, because if you need to make any adjustments to the coat, you're going to have to keep changing those facing pieces. So what you should do is, after you've done any changes you need to do, then you can cut out your facing pieces. And the facing piece is literally the back collar, which I'm going to show you how to draft that piece as well. And then you're going to cut out the front facing, and it's literally measure in as far as you want your front facing to be. I usually do about 3 to 4 inches, depending on how thick the fabric is, how much of the coat collar is going to be open, that kind of thing. And then you just literally trace whatever the shape is, and that's your facing piece. I do have, in the very first Haslam tutorial videos I do have a bit where I show you how to do the facings, so I'll make sure to link that. Okay, so let's get started. Now we're starting with the front piece. So there's my instructions. And I believe that, I'm just trying to think of, I think we use mostly the front template, but it's possible we're going to be switching back and forth, but I'm just going to pull that out, put that right there for now. And what I like to do personally, it's up to you where you start, but I always like to start on the top left-hand corner. So that's here for me. This is my left-hand side. So right away, And again, make sure you have your template handy. So there are a couple of measurements that I'm going to do right away, and then I'll use the template. So the first one is, actually I'm just going to move this into the center a bit, just to make it a little easier. So from this corner, you're going to measure in 1/2 inch. And then 1 1/4 for the dart. Now, that's the other thing I need to tell you. And I didn't do it. We've made this dart. We need to pin this dart up before we do anything else. So bear with me for a moment. Okay, apologies, I have pinned it up. Now, when you pin up that dart, it does make the paper a little not smooth. So just do your best. When you cut it out, it does sort of help a little bit, but that is necessary. Also, it is going to be raised a little bit here. Don't worry about it because we're actually coming up 1/2 inch here. I actually measured in 1/2 inch. It meant to go up 1/2 inch. So from here, you're going to go up 1/2 inch first, then go in 1/2 inch. Otherwise, the measurement is not going to be accurate. So up 1/2 inch first, and then in 1/2 inch. Otherwise, like I said, you're not going to have an accurate measurement. And just draw a line. Because what you're doing is you're raising this by 1/2 inch, and the reason you're doing that is so that the coat, like the shoulder, right, for the coat. Also, you're going to be putting in, at some point, you're going to be putting in, if you want, you don't have to, but shoulder pads, because the 1940s coats have shoulder pads. I mean, most coats today still have them. And then you're going to draw a line from where you raised it up, from that 1/2 inch in. And not to worry, you're going to be doing a curve here afterwards. But before we do that, we're just going to do a few other measurements up here, just while we're working on the shoulder. Okay. So you're going to, those measurements are going to be from that new 1/2 inch mark. Now, the other measurements you're going to do, and you're going to be starting from over here. This is, again, the shoulder. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw that in Sharpie, because that way you can see it. Otherwise, you can't see that line. Okay, there we go. So from this corner, you're going to go from this neckline, you're going to go out 1.5 inches. Oh, sorry, 1.25 inches. And put a dot. And then I'm just going to, I guess I'll just draw this in Sharpie. And that is because of the type of color we're doing. And then you're going to come in from this line here. You're going to come in 1.25 inches. And then I'm just going to put a mark, because that is going to be where your top of your one leg of your dart is. And then another 1.25 inches. As the top leg of your dart. Now, I am not going to finish this dart right now, because we're going to be doing some work over on the sleeve, and it tells you where to come in for the bottom of that dart leg. But first I want to do all of this because that will affect that 3 inches that we're going to come in. So next we're going to be measuring the armhole, doing the armhole bit. You're going to need your back template, and you're going to be using where it says BC and K on the front. So just mark those on the back as well as broad. You're going to be using those, but you are flipping it because you need the armhole to go in towards the coat. And first you're going to do is you're going to measure down on a curve 4 inches. And to make life easier, excuse all the noise, I have a measuring tape, and eyeball the sort of the curve to the best that you can, because this is flexible whereas this is not. And it just helps you sort of get it lined up properly. So you're going to mark 4 inches somewhere in here. It doesn't have to be 100% accurate, but just sort of to give you an idea of where and then sort of just draw a line from where you marked it just over to where you have drawn your outline from your coat. Just do your best. It's not going to be perfectly straight, I'm sure, but... And then what you're going to do is you're going to take your template that you flipped over, and you're going to line BC up with this top corner here, and you're going to line K up where you marked the 4 inches. And it's more important to line up the K than the BC. Like you want it to line up with this line, but where the BC exact mark is not what you're lining up with. You're just lining up with that part of the template. And then draw your line. You're going to measure 1.5 inches from K, from here. And in this case, you can just go around the outline of the dress, and you're just going to put a dot. I'm just marking it. Oh, marked the wrong spot. As 1.5 inches, right? Just so you know what that mark is. Even though Haslam has the template, sometimes you do have to use other measuring tools. Now, before we can continue that curve, we have to do some measurements down here. So we're going to, and it says on here .3, so it's good to know that this, you know, you've marked .3 here, right? So we're going to drop down it says 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to do 3/4 of an inch just because I do have larger arms and I want to make sure that my armhole is comfortable. I mean, you can always change it later. So I'm going to do 3/4 of an inch down. I'm just going to mark it with a little down arrow. And then measure in here 3 inches. Just walk your measuring tape around. And then from that 3-inch, you're gonna go in 3 inches, and that's gonna let you know where the bottom of your dart is, though I feel like 3 inches isn't enough. I'm gonna come back to the dart because if you look at the illustration, it says 3 inches to the bottom of the dart, but the dart is over here. I'm gonna double check these measurements, but I gotta tell you though, sometimes it looks different on here than what ends up on here. It has happened to me. So for now I am just gonna measure in 3 inches, and I'm just gonna mark it, but I'm not gonna do that dart just yet. So you're gonna take the broad, okay, so you know where you measured down 3/4 of an inch, so you're gonna line up the broad arrow there. And then you're gonna move your template to that point where you were gonna mark 3 inches for the dart. Anyways, so, and draw that new arm curve. And again, because this is a coat, you have to take that bit out there. So that is all of that. So I'm just gonna go over it with the Sharpie just so that you can see it. Okay, and that is your armhole. Okay, going back to the dart, I feel like there's a measurement missing. Only because when you look at the illustration, the dart is closer to the shoulder seam than the neck. So what I've done is I've actually come over another 1.25 inches to do the other leg. Where are we here? And then, yeah. So, and also looking at this, you're coming down, so where you marked that 1.5 inches, looking at the illustration, that's where it looks like that 3 inches is coming in. And that makes sense. So my apologies. That is how you're going to do that dart. It's possible for smaller coats that that original measurements on the illustration might work, but for my coat, it's definitely not going to work. So I do highly recommend that. Is that right? Sorry, I just got to double check my measurement here. Oh, I measured out 4 inches. 1, 2, 3, yeah. 1, 2, 3, yeah. Almost measured out too far. So I recommend that with Haslam, sometimes you do have to eyeball things, just because a lot of the patterns are assuming you're smaller in size. I'm going to draw that dart. And that works with the illustration. So there you go. Moving on. Sorry. I had to double check. It didn't feel right, so I had to double check it. And as we're drafting patterns with Haslam, sometimes you need to listen to your gut. Okay, so we have now done that armhole. So next, let's do the waist dart. Now, I'm going to double check the measurements, but we do already have the one from the dress here. And For me personally, I feel like this makes more sense, especially looking at the illustration. Oh, on the illustration, it's going to show that you're going to measure from the armhole down to 13 inches and then go in 1 inch in the middle. On your dress foundation, you've already done that, so you don't have to change that part. Okay, so let me just double check these measurements. So from the original foundation, you're going to go in 3.5 inches and make a mark. And then in another 1.5 inches. So oh, that's just on the paper. And then another 1.5 inches. And again, that has you more towards the front of the coat, but we are going to be adding width over here, so that in fact does make sense, and the start is too far over. So we're going to go with these darts, because looking at the illustration it makes sense. So once you've made the second dot, you're going to also measure over another 1/2 inch. And these are now your dart legs. And I always just like to find the middle. And you're going to go down 3 inches and up 3 inches. And that's going to be the bottom of your dart and the top of your dart. Oops. Okay, let me draw those darts in. See, these darts made sense. Oh, yeah, it happens. I gotta tell you, anyone who is experienced with Haslam will tell you the exact same thing that I just told you, that sometimes you will measure things and then you gotta go back and measure it again because it's off. Or it doesn't look like the illustration. And I mean, yeah, it's not always gonna look like the illustration, but go with your gut, because if your gut tells you that dart doesn't belong where it ends up with the measurements, and that means that you need to move it. So I do always refer back to the drawings as well, because, or the illustration, because yeah, the darts are closer to the armhole than the neck. So all right, so we've done that. We're going to finish working on the top, and then, because the bottom is pretty easy, it's just making it a bit wider. And then the pocket we're going to draw on to the piece, because you can always trace over it later with a piece of tissue paper or tracing paper. Okay, so from dot 1, we're going to raise 1/4 inch and put a mark. And they've done it on an angle, so we're going to do it on an angle. And from that dot, you're going to go over 3/4 inch. Sometimes these numbers are small too, so you've got to like stare at them for a minute to to make sure that it actually says what it says. So yeah, it looks like it's 3/4 inch. That's from that new dot that you just made. There's also a measurement here to measure out 6 inches from dot 1. So I'm just going to do that and then just mark it just to make sure we're on track. So that's over there. And then you're going to line up the broad arrow with this new dot here. And then line it up with the line up here, the end of the line up here. And because we're doing the collar bit, I'm just doing these one step at a time. And then I'll go over it with marker. Okay, that's the first step. And then you're going to go over 3/4 of an inch. So now we're doing our dart leg. I am going to draw that line, that 6-inch line. I'm just going to do a, just from looking at the illustration, I'm just going to do a dotted line, because it is going to help us line things up. And then we're going to find the middle. That's about the middle. And you're going to measure down 3 inches for the dart. I'm just going to pencil in the dart for now. Again, I'll go over this in marker in a moment. Okay. Well, this isn't a dart. I think you're cutting this out. Actually, this isn't going to be a dart. You're going to be cutting this out for the collar. Where the collar comes in here, that's what you're cutting out. And then you're going to measure over 1 inch and make a mark. And then from that point, you're going to measure over, what was it? I just looked at it. 3.5 inches and make a mark. On that dotted line. And then you're going to measure down from where you made that 1 inch over mark. You're going to measure down 3/4 of an inch. And then what we're doing now is we're making another V. So from the right side of that opening, you're going to draw a line. And then where you marked over that 3.5 inches, you're going to draw another line. And that's going to be another area that you're cutting out that is also part of the collar. And then from the dotted line, you're going to measure up 1 inch from the very last, the end of that dotted line. You're going to measure up 1 inch. And then you're going to line up J. Then you're going to line up J, but J is over on the, hopefully you can see that okay. Again, I apologize for all the shifting around, but the table's not big enough. J is on the front template. So you're going to line J up there. Let's back up a little bit. This line here doesn't get drawn until you do that 1 inch measurement. Now we can draw that line. Sorry. I'm doing this the first time, oops, with you guys, so we make mistakes sometimes. There we go. That looks better. Okay, so next what you're going to do is from dot B, I wrote dot C, but it's supposed to be dot B. Just going to fix that, dot B. So what you're going to do is you're going to measure at 3 1/4 inches. Okay, and then we're going to line up J to this top corner here. Where are you, J? That is on your front template. And then you're going to line this up with that dot you just made. And draw that line. And then at your waistline, you're going to measure out, that's why you mark this. From the waistline, we're going to measure out 3 inches. And mark that. And then you are going to take the letter K, which is on the back template, and you're going to line it up where you ended that line. And actually, I'm going to draw, before I do that, I am going to draw a dotted line here, just so we know where to end. I mean, the dot will tell you, but this sort of visually helps a little bit better. So what you're going to do is you're going to line up, where are you, K, with this dot over here. And then you're going to, no, you're coming in. So you're going to have to flip it, sorry. You're going to have to flip your template and line up K. There we go. And draw a line. So let me just go back now and just go over everything with marker, and then we'll finish off the coat piece. Well, it's not the whole coat, it's the we're gonna measure. We're gonna finish off the front piece. The back piece is gonna be so much easier, trust me. The thing that made it complicated, well, or makes it feel like it's complicated, is the rubber collar. Okay, so now on these pattern pieces, on the bottom, let me just shift this paper a little bit. On the bottom of this, it says to use corner 4 and to come up 1/2 inch. You've already done that on your dress foundation, so you don't have to do that part. So literally all we're doing at this point now is from here, you're going to measure out 3 1/2 inches. And make a mark. And you're going to draw from this here down to the bottom a straight line. Now again, this is where I have mentioned the T-square, or another straight edge, is going to help you do this line straight. So line it up there, then shift your template so everything lines up. But you're just going to have to hold it. And actually at this point I can just use the marker because we don't have to change any of this. And then you literally just have to connect the dots along the bottom. And in my case, like I've already, you've already penciled out the and then also on the other side, there aren't any changes, so you're just going to draw that line there too. I'm just going to use this to get a straighter line. Okay, and then we're going to do the front piece next. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Now you have a front pattern piece for your coat, if you're doing the same one as mine. If you're doing a different coat, I mean, depending on how complicated they are, the steps are going to be very, very similar. So I wouldn't worry about not doing this coat. Like if you want to do something else, please do. But yeah, we have the front. And now for the next video, we're going to be doing the back, collar, and the sleeve pattern pieces. So if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe. And until next time, stay kitschy.